Can you hear us now? Are you kidding me?
Wonder.
Are you kidding me? So it feels like we need to go over that again.
Again, just rewind.
Mr. Deputy Commissioner, it feels like we need to do that. For real, for real. Uh-oh. Okay. Folks in teams, please, yes, we did. Please hang on for us as we get some technical assistance in the room.
Testing, no, I'm just kidding. You got the coke, yeah.
Folks in the room who don't, please grab something.
No.
Otherwise, Richard's gonna have to take all that. He's not feeling it. You can go. Yes.
We can do it, it'll be all right. I'm gonna go and cut it on. Get it plugged in. Test. Stop.
I was trying to remember and do my.
So we've got regular Chick-fil-A sandwiches, we have spicy Chick-fil-A sandwiches, we have grilled chicken. Along with Skipper's, there's some sweet tea, there's some sweet tea, that sounds good.
I've been through with this and being talking to that now that time. Just use this.
So this can come out then, because I think that's good.
It was just.
No,
It coming,
this is mine,
okay,
but this one is yours.
coming.
Okay, because I think that's connected to this.
No, we just trying to. That's just, so you want to,
That's what he said, but you can't.
I didn't want to, you don't need it off, you just turn it, yeah. I didn't want them to be talking with that in there.
I got
We
you.
can unplug it, but we.
No, she good.
You ready?
I think.
So,
Thank you, kind sirs.
yeah.
All right. Our people for real. Those are the real heroes. So our folks in the room are still being able to hear us back there, y'all? So let's do this. Let's start over, Teresa. How about that? All right, good morning, everyone. We are start again. This is how the morning has really been today for most of our team, like for real, for real. So again, my name is Linda Copeland, and I am now, that's not working. I am the Youth Justice Director for the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Please try.
This is a 20-minute job, though. I can't break through this tape like MacGyver, but I'm going to give it a go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I feel really like crazy right now. My name is Linda Copeland, and I'm the Youth Justice Director with the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. And we're going to talk really briefly about who we are in case you're here and you don't know who we are. You might think you know who we are, but you really don't. So we're going to talk a bit about who we are, and we're going to talk a bit about what we do. And Teresa Sipes is going to share with us who we are.
Thank you. Always so handy. I'm Teresa Sipes. I'm the compliance monitor for the Youth Justice Team.
Let's see if that makes any difference. Can y'all hear me at home? Anybody? We're good?
It takes a team.
You can try to, we can try to disable that sound if you want to.
Still,
Those are the good feedback sounds. I like them.
oh, thank you, Christine. Boy, we just can't make this stuff up. So y'all are gonna get these slides. So y'all are gonna know, we're not doing a third time who we are and what we do. So let's do this. I want you all to meet my team. I am often the face of this meeting. And so you hear me a lot and you see me a lot. And we put up almost at the end of each meeting, a slide that shows our team. But I want you to hear from them today. How the mouse is marching. I want you to hear from them today. And first up is the GOAT of our team, Miss Zanira Whitfield. And she's going to come and share what it is that she does. That's the only way that people are going to hear you. Well, let's see if they can hear me through this even good piece. This was the GOAT. Oh,
The mention, there was a bill. Let's see. The specialist, been around a long time. And, my primary role with the agency is that implement visions of justice. That's one of the main, responsibilities of the community. And when we look at what this is look like, the coordinator for what we call, the Title II federal funding grant funds. I coordinate the administration of that. These are funds that are to support local state efforts to prevent delinquency and to improve the juvenile justice system. I also implement, disseminate information about justice issues as well as provide technical assistance for statewide clients, in regard to the federal juvenile justice prevention act. I also serve on the Davidson County Foster Care Review Board. I have chaired that board as well as pretty much a 5 years now. And that's basically what I do for the commission. Any questions?
Thank you, Cindy.
Did anybody hear? Thank you.
awesome. Thanks, Anira. Next up is Teresa.
Take this one. So as I've already said, Teresa Sykes, Compliance Monitor. My primary role is etched out in TCA 373103. I coordinate and assist in monitoring facilities where you could be detained or confined as a result of involvement with the juvenile justice system. I monitor for statewide compliance with the 4 core requirements of the JJBPA. That's only detaining or confining youth in secure facilities when it's absolutely necessary for the shortest amount of time, to keep them sight and sound separated from adult inmates, to keep them out of adult jails, and to reduce disparities in the youth justice system. I also participate in the Sumner County Foster Care Review Board, and I have the Department of State for Office. So.
Wendy Pickering is next.
So I am Wendy Pickering, I am the grant contract monitor with TCCY. So what that means is the federal formula grants that we get with our Title II fund that Z talked about, I monitor those and make sure that they stay in compliance with our central procurement office contracts. I also do that for our CASA contracts those are state funds that pass through us since I monitor those. I also have to develop our central procurement office plan that says what I'll be doing in the monitor and how that's going to work. My other roles, I am a compliance monitor, which what Teresa just talked about for some of the counties. And then I also serve as the board secretary for a nonprofit called Equally Created, whose vision is to offer accessible quality childcare to everyone, even professional.
And last but not least, Corey Bradfield.
And Board Brad Deal is realizing that it's a template for these slides. So I said 3 slides, and I'm gonna talk a little extra. Thank you for indulging me. Because I'm glad to have new friends from DCS here today, and so much of my job depends on having a good relationship with y'all. So an ombudsman, for those of you who don't know, is literally a grievance person, called the grievance man. And while I'm happy personally to hear any grievances you might have, chatting, the ombudsman grievances need to be centered around the file that's in state custody, and or has been for quite some time. There are actually more restrictive guidelines in my book, but I really do approach this with a no long war policy to whatever your issue is. I'll try to get you to the right person. It's not within my jurisdiction. So it's important to know if somebody has an issue, arbitrary services or other issues around the child state custody, they call me. They are my reference. The client of the child is called. They are my reference, and those conversations are always confidential, but there often have to be waived. Investigation. So that's sorry, it's out of order. So, and then this is part of the spiel I give to everybody when they call me. It's important for them to know that I'm not on PCS. That it's, you know, you'll see values down there below. That's really important for the work, but it also means I don't have the authority over DCS, and really everything. Success of this office is based on a history of cooperation between TCCY and DCS. I do have access to certain DCS records. So yeah, basically the authority of ombudsman is rooted in TCCY's statutory role as an advocate and in another statutory provision allowing us access to certain DCS records. And these values here come from the United States Ombudsman Association manual, independence. We talked a little bit about that, transparency, fairness, accountability, and timeliness. Keep all those five all the time. Sorry. The folks that call me biological parents, foster parents, and a lot of foster parents recently. Getting out that. Everybody listening to this, please help spread about this program. Or so on. Get grandparents, other relatives, you, and hospice. And as you can see, everything from placement to adoption, there's EPR, adequate services, permanency plan, and justice. Miscommunication is doing a lot of work there. I really find that is most often where I can be most helpful. Is nobody's violating any policies. It's just an issue of, you know, client and the department maybe not communicating with each other as clearly, or maybe got off on the foot, just speeding over. So I can try to help with that. Okay, again, sorry for taking so long, but I'm taking advantage of my DCS on.
Thanks, team. Corey, I'm going to put you to work, so don't turn that off yet. I know some of my team back there has been monitoring the chat and maybe sharing with folks in the chat that we want to ensure that we know who's in the room with us, even when you're in the virtual audience. And so please ensure that you put your name and your title or position, the agency that you work for, and where in the state you are. And if you are in the room with more than, if you're in the room with other people, please ensure that we're getting their name so that we can have an accurate count of who's with us today. And then I'm going to ask Corey, because we want people in the virtual space to hear folks in the room. I want to hear from you in the room today so that we're not sitting here ignorant of who's sitting next to us. So, Corey, if you want, you can start from the back. One more time. You were last.
CCCY.
Very far from there.
My name is Michael Mines. I was the former juvenile court judge in Dixon County and now currently an attorney working primarily in Hickman and Perry, with Humphreys, Little and Williamson, just in the juvenile court, representing as a GAL, but also parents.
Hey, I'm Kelly Gray, Chief Probation Officer with Dixon County Juvenile Court.
Hi, I'm Zoe Jamel. I'm the rights committee.
Hi, Kevin Pereira. I am I'm with UT Shorts,
and I'm a welfare consultant for the state, so that's the coordinator for task force. And, the system review panels, and I cover the state, but I lived in Nashville and in Harrison.
I'm Katrina Thompson, Chief Inspector of Programs for Shelby County Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon, my name is Ginger Harris, and I am the youth engagement coordinator for the Office of Independent Living and Children's Services, and I'm located here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm glad to be here today.
You're gonna see five.
Evening, everyone. The ladies stuck in traffic. I'm Assistant Chief Tunnel from Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I run the Justice Center, Detention Center, and also the VC.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Magdalene Head, and I am the statewide fair coordinator for juvenile justice. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Glenn Cook. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Juvenile Justice. Darren Giz, Deputy Commissioner of Department of Children's Services.
Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Kennedy, and I'm the Director of the Commission on Children and Youth.
Thank you all so much for indulging us so that folks in the virtual space could know who was in the room with us here. Here's the agenda. Everybody in the room should have one. Everybody in Teams should also have one, but with just a quick rundown. In just a moment, we're going to hear from our executive director, the last voice you just heard in the person of Richard Kennedy. And then we're going to dive right into our DCS presentation. We're so excited to have our DCS partners with us here on today from the Office of Juvenile Justice. I was just thinking a moment ago, this is the first time probably since I left DCS that I've been around so many DCS people. So I'm feeling awfully good today. And then we will hear from another DCS person that you heard introduce herself in the person of Ginger Harris from the Office of Independent Living. And then if there's time, with all of the technical difficulties we've had this morning, if there's time, you might hear from me again to talk about the youth justice portion of the State of the Child report that our agency puts out. And then we want to hear from you, those of you who are in the youth serving field, and here's some updates of things that might be going on with you. And then we'll just we'll talk about what today's been like, and then we will adjourn. So before Richard joins me here, some of you may be new to this space. And so kind of just wanted to give you this slide that really talks about why are we even here? I mentioned earlier that our agency and this coalition, Council on Youth Justice, is a convener. And so it's about us bringing together people to talk about youth justice related issues, to talk about what those concerns are, and to educate people around it. And so we are hoping to get folks like what we've heard in this room, so other state agencies. We're hoping to get people from community serving agencies in the mental health field, folks in the actual communities. We're hoping to get young people with lived experience into this space because we need to hear from them. And so we want to get our legislators in this space. So it's really about convening all of these people, again, getting back to the point that I made earlier, where we understand that we don't have the capacity to do all the things that need to be done. But if we had time, and we're not going to do that today, but if we had time, it would be cool to go around the room and talk about the number of years that each of us has worked in this space, just so we could understand how much power we have here, right? People that have been doing this work in different spaces for many years. And if we get to come together, we're better able to solve issues than we are working in silos. And so that's really who we are. You all can read that. You'll get it after this meeting. But I just wanted to say a bit about this is why we do what we do in this space. Now, Richard is going to come and share greetings with us. And then the next voice you will hear after Richard is Mr. Glenn Cook. Richard.
Well, I hate that picture. It makes my head look awfully big, and we all know it's not the case. So thank you all so much. As I introduced myself, and as Linda said, I'm Richard Kennedy, and I have the great privilege to serve as the executive director of the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. As you heard Teresa when she was talking about the commission's an independent, nonpartisan state agency, and so we as an organization look a little different than our sister cabinet level agencies in that we do not have one commissioner that's appointed by the governor to provide oversight and guidance and leadership for our organization. Instead, we're fortunate to have a 21-member commission, think board of directors. The board of directors oversees all of our work, provides pretty broad guidance for us as to how we do the work that we do. Most importantly, they hire and fire me. So they are 21 important people in my life. That's important for the purpose of this conversation as well, because as you all see and know, youth justice is a significant part of our portfolio of work. And so the current chair of the commission is Judge Rob Filyaw, who is the Hamilton County Juvenile Court Judge. And we have a lot of representatives from the youth justice space who serve on the commission. So in addition to Judge Filyaw, we have Judge Sharon Green, who is in Johnson City. We have Magistrate Ashley Duncan, who is from Lawrence County, and then also really involved in the youth justice space, but not in a judicial role, is Charmaine Cromer with Youth Villages. And we are also fortunate, Charmaine Cromer, and I started to say someone, Dr. Alpha Stewart. I can't believe I forgot Dr. Stewart. Dr. Alpha Stewart with a UT Health Science Center in Memphis that does some phenomenal work with justice-involved youth. So I want to kind of put that kind of clarity on kind of our role and the guidance that we receive to do the work that we do. I want to let you all know that with all of the work that we do at the commission, it kind of falls into one of three buckets. It's either statutorily required. So the General Assembly has said, hey, commission, you do this. It is contract required, where we have some partnerships with our friends at DCS, our friends at the Department of Health, and friends at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Or sometimes the last bucket is that the commission, our board, says we want you to do this. So Linda did an exceptional job of talking about the goals of this group. But, the way my brain works is I really want to know the why, of why are we doing what we're doing? And the goals do a good job of that. But really kind of want to give you a little bit of history in that several years ago, it was a rough time for youth justice in the state. There was some pretty damning, consistent news that was coming out of one of our counties about a judge. There were some challenges with a detention center. And so there was just a lot of awareness around youth justice issues. And the members of the commission said, we serve as a state advisory group for juvenile justice. What is our role in helping solve some of these problems? So we were very clear, we can't make a detention center do anything. We can't make a judge do anything. That's really not our lane. But where we all agreed that our lane was, as Linda said, was really bringing people together to learn from each other, to talk openly and honestly about challenges that we're seeing and facing, and really to be able to amplify voices so that, there are some things that we at the commission can say because of our structure that some of our friends in other state entities can't say, or some of our other service providers might not feel comfortable saying. And so our hope with this is that we learn and we amplify voices to ultimately solve problems. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago and had the opportunity to hear one of our dear friends, Melissa Binkley, who is the director of the RIP program with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. And she said something that has changed my brain. And what she said is, when I go to meetings, I want to accomplish two things. I want to learn something and I want to do something. So I hope that in this meeting today, you guys are going to learn something. I hope that you have an opportunity to do something, whether that's network with each other, make a new connection, or strengthen an existing connection. And then also I want you to think about what you're going to do when you leave with the information that you received today. day. As Corey said with the Ombudsman program, always keeping the best interest of children in mind. So a couple of updates that I want to share with you guys about the commission, and let me stop for just a second. I want to thank Linda, Craig, Corey, Rosette, Teresa, Z, all of the folks who did, Melissa, all of the folks who do just incredible work at the commission. Many of you know that our former deputy governor, Jim Henry, is one of my personal heroes, and I kind of have him on a pedestal. And so he would always tell a story that was kind of a joke. And basically, the joke was that at Christmas time, the elves do all of the work, and the fat guy in the suit gets all of the credit. So that's very much how I feel, is that the people on our team do all of the work, and I get a lot of undeserved credit. So certainly want to recognize them every opportunity that I have. So moving along to some updates. Last week, golly, it was last week. It feels like it was a month ago already. Was our annual Children's Advocacy Days. We had about 700 folks from across the state that were in Nashville. It was part networking, part conference, part interaction with legislators. And the whole theme of this year's event was really around the impact of social media on children's mental health. And learned a lot of information that I think was very valuable. Appreciate the legislators that were in attendance, but hands down, my favorite part of Children's Advocacy Days every year is we have the opportunity to present several awards. Judge Mize is a former award winner of ours, and we'll always recognize him like a former Oscar winner. But this year in the youth justice space, we had the opportunity to present the Senator Douglas Henry Public Official Year of the Year Award to Assistant District Attorney Stacy Miller in the Nashville. Yeah, well, you did as well. So Stacy's phenomenal, and so it was a great opportunity for our friends at DCS. Another award, we had an opportunity to recognize Carla Aaron with the Jim Pryor Award. So always happy to do that. So all in all, it was a good event. Feel like that folks learned a lot, and I really look forward to seeing kind of the synergy or what comes out of that conversation. As Linda said, the legislature is in full swing, hopefully winding down, full swing. I know Zoe feels that very intensely. So we're hearing and hoping and fingers crossed that we're going to be finished by Good Friday. Unless Zoe's heard something different, that's kind of what I am hoping and banking on. So there are a lot of youth justice bills, but there are a couple of bills that will directly impact some of the work that we do here at the commission that I'll tell you a little bit about. First and foremost, the agency-wide stressful part are budget hearings. So we had a little bit of a pass with some new leadership in the House this year that we did not have to do a budget hearing in the House, but we have finished our budget hearing in Senate Health and Welfare. By and large, it went well. A challenge that all state entities are going to face this year is that state agencies, when they have an opportunity, we have an opportunity to do improvement requests in the budget, but with that, we also have to do a reduction plan. And so we had to, like every state agency, had to do a 1% reduction plan, and that was accepted. So that means they are taking some money out of our budget. So we are going to be creative and mindful of how we utilize the resources provided to us going forward next year. One of the bills that I'm excited about really came out of some conversation with Representative Caleb Hemmer in Nashville, Representative Brock Martin in Northwest Tennessee, who are both very passionate about children's mental health, and so very passionate about the coordination of services around children's mental health. And so what we know is our friends and colleagues at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services do phenomenal work, but what we also know is that there are 9 state agencies that have their finger involved in children's mental health and funding services for children's mental health. So what those legislators said is we really want to strengthen the Council on Children's Mental Health and really empower the Council on Children's Mental Health to, and I don't want to say have teeth because that's not the right word, but be more influential in the work that that council does. So there's a simple requirement, simple bill that would change, a bill that would change a simple requirement that we're optimistic will have a lot of impact. And that's requiring that council to submit an annual report and make recommendations for improving the youth mental health system. Quite honestly, you know, the General Assembly and the governor have been great with providing additional funding for mental health. And now the question is kind of becoming where are there gaps in services, what's working well, where do we have opportunities? And so it's my hope that through the requirement of this report, that council will really be able to plug in a more formal way that will provide those recommendations to other child serving departments, to legislators, and quite honestly hope that it will be beneficial for those folks who are doing work in the communities as they look at where there are needs and gaps. The second bill, and so that bill has moved through. I think we're just waiting on some signatures with the CCMH bill. The second bill is a bill that this is the third year that it's been introduced, and fingers crossed this is the year. It's a bill that's being sponsored by Representative Mary Littleton from Dixon and Senator Ed Jackson from Jackson. And so both of those legislators serve on some work that we do at the commission that's called the Second Look Commission. And the Second Look Commission, Craig Hargrove deserves incredible praise for this because he really took it from legislation concept to standing it up and implementation. But that group is statutorily defined group of members who review a random sample of children who have 2 or more indicated incidences of severe physical or sexual abuse. And really what they're looking at is how can they make recommendations to ensure that if a kid was hurt one time and we knew about it, it wouldn't happen a second time, and where there could have been balls dropped or cracks in the system. So Senator Jackson and Representative Littleton have such high praise for that what they've said is we want to model a new commission that is a juvenile justice review commission after the work of the Second Look Commission. And so we are, again, fingers crossed, confident, cautiously optimistic that may pass this year. And so really look forward to standing up that entity. Again, I'm so incredibly appreciative of Craig Hargrove. So if that does pass, Craig will be the man that will bring that to life. And I think that there can be some real overlap with the work that you guys are doing here in the Council of Youth Justice with that Juvenile Justice Review Commission. I think it can be very symbiotic in that there will be an opportunity potentially for that group to present to this group and for folks to be on similar pages. Another bill I will mention to you guys is something that we just learned about this week. Is there was a caption bill that had been filed, and we've seen the amendment, and it's again another Representative Littleton bill that will create a task force on ending childhood hunger in Tennessee. And so we have a meeting with her on Monday in hopes that we can beg and plead our way to have a seat in that group. So we'll keep you guys posted with that as well. So that's kind of the legislature right now. I appreciate all of their hard work. It does not hurt my feelings when they go home for the year, but do appreciate all that they do when they are in Nashville. Appreciate most of what they do when they're in Nashville. Last thing I will say is that the commission is a member of a national organization that is called the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. And so they do a pretty significant annual conference every year in DC. That's just a phenomenal event. So I'm really excited that some of our team are going to be in DC for that event in May. I will fly up for a short amount of time to do some Hill visits with our federal delegation. Craig is still deciding if he's going to fly up or not. I think the answer is no, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that he changes his mind. But anyway, in saying all of that, really excited about that opportunity because that is really one of the one times of the year that we get to hear from other states across the country who are doing some really interesting work in youth justice and seeing some significant outcomes. And like most other organizations, they do a phenomenal job of incorporating youth voice into their programming. And so to be able to hear directly from the young folks around, kind of what made a difference in their lives, what programming worked, and quite honestly, what we as adults in the room get wrong. And so looking forward to that. But as always, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here today. You could be in 75 different other meetings, so we appreciate you choosing this one. Want to thank Deputy Commissioner Goods and Glenn for being with us, and Linda and team for all that they do every single day. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Richard. Without
You keep going, I'm gonna work on this for just a minute.
further delay, Glenn doesn't have any slides.
Oh,
This is Glenn's
perfect,
slide.
Glenn, perfect.
That's Glenn's slide. Glenn is the executive director, as he mentioned. He's the executive director of facilities management and Wilder with the Department of Children's Services in the Office of Juvenile Justice. And we're so glad that he's here to share with us.
Now, they're not gonna be able to see you online if you're there, but you can be there, just know that.
You know the truth.
Rather.
No, I'm good. You're good.
Don't mind me.
Okay. Hey, I'm Glenn Cook. Happy to be here. I go a little ways back with a few people in this room, Kelly, Linda, Z. I didn't expect to see some of these people here today, but I'm glad to see you. Anyway, I'm Glenn. I'm with the Office of Juvenile Justice for the department. I work for Deputy Commissioner Goods. And I guess my history is facilities. So back in 92, I got my first job in corrections. I was a young man. And I started in adult corrections in Nashville at what is now Core Civic. They had the contract to juvenile detention back in that day. And after about 4.5 years of adult corrections, I decided to try to promote to chief of security at the Davidson County Detention Center. I did receive that promotion and accidentally started my career with juveniles. So from October of 92 to June of 2015, I was either the chief of security or assistant superintendent for the Davidson County Juvenile Detention Center. There I met Z. She was my monitor. Kelly in probation. During that time, we had a great run. I think we ran the best detention center in the state of Tennessee, Southeast. Had a lot of good things that we were able to accomplish there. I left detention in June of 2015, joined the state as the operations director for the state's YDCs, Mountain View, Woodland Hills, and Wilder. Did a short stint with the department there, and then I went back to private. And from there, I've managed residential facilities, both DNN and juvenile justice. I've been a regional director for youth opportunity investments. I've been a state director of placement for youth opportunity investments. And then in October of 23, Deputy Commissioner Goods and Commissioner Quinn reached out and offered me a position. And so they explained it to me that my role would be over Wilder Youth Development Center, managing that facility, managing the PREA monitoring team, and also having a hand in the state's real estate plan. So that's my role, and that has been my role since December of 23. And we've been able to accomplish some good things since that time. One of the best things that happened to me was Deputy Commissioner Goods allowed me to work with Madeline, who is our statewide PREA coordinator. We'll talk a little bit about that. But for the year that I've been here, there's some good things that we've been able to do in OJJ. We've been able to reduce the population at Wilder. We've been able to stabilize that operation. have fidelity in our services, education and clinical services. We've been able to reduce overtime. We've been able to reduce the financial strain on the department through some contract changes. We have shut down seclusion and segregation. We are instituting a new behavior management model at Wilder. We have greatly reduced incidents. We are tracking data daily. And we've also passed our independent PREA audit with no findings. So before I turn it over to Magdalene and she gets in the weeds with this, the one thing, as I said, they did do for me is they gave me Magdalene. So when I joined the department in December, we had 6 months to get past an independent PREA monitoring where we had found, we had findings previously, right? I had a decision to make, and that was to either get involved so much that I would break down the work that she did or just jump on her train. I decided to jump on her train. And I'm thankful that we were able to do what we needed to do to get past this audit with no findings. And since that time, we've grown our PREA monitoring team in the department. We'll talk more about that. I'll let Magdalene speak to that. And I'll stick around for questions at the end, but that's who I am and that's what we do. So Magdalene.
Good afternoon, everyone, again. Let me just show my face real quick, because I'm not gonna stand that. Oh, they're not? Okay. So I am the statewide PREA coordinator. And for some of you that may not know, PREA stands for Prison Rape and Litigation Act. And our unit was actually developed 2 years ago, early 2023. Prior to that, we had one statewide PREA coordinator and one investigator that investigated all sexual abuse and sexual harassment. And then in 2023, our commissioner allowed us to develop a team, point people investigating sexual harassment and as well as monitoring all PREA facilities. Since that time, last year, all of the investigations are now investigated under the SIU unit. So that's under a different division, and my unit actually does monitoring for the PREA facilities in the state. So just to kind of give an overview of PREA for those that may not know exactly what it is. PREA mainly is to eliminate and reduce and prevent sexual abuse and sexual harassment in prisons for adults as well as juvenile facilities for our kids. It mandates several national data collections, so we are responsible to keep data on sexual abuse and harassment incidents and all of the things that we to reduce and track those. It created a national commission to develop standards and accountability measures. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But this law was put into place in 2003, and then this commission helped to make the all standards so those and meet the law. And so this commission it developed these standards, and in 2012, the facilities were started, supposed to start making them in effect. And there's many standards, so if you want to count them all up, it's more than 300 standards. But as you go along, it's mainly about practice and not just about policy. So you start to learn them. But in addition to the standards, there are also FAQs. But with these FAQs, different interpretations of the current standards are applied so that the different facilities and agencies will know how to implement these standards effectively in the facilities. And those standards can be found at this particular website. You can go to the next. So the intent of the prison rape, like I said, was to prevent and detect. for quite a long time, the community, society felt that those that were incarcerated, sometimes deserved what they got. They sometimes felt that, you know, it was just the nature of things, you're not able to really control what happens in correctional facilities, juvenile facilities. And so this particular act was set in place to stop that from happening, because no one deserves to be sexually abused for, just because they committed a crime. So this act was to protect those individuals. Violently. And so, of course, they were allowing use. A lot of times it's easy to identify, but the harassment sometimes is not. We talk about that boys will be boys, or, you know, that's just what girls or children do. It's normal adolescent behavior to do certain things. And it was very subjective, but these standards helped us to be able to concretely identify what behaviors were unacceptable to those incarcerated as well as those that were not incarcerated. So as we all know, rape can have severe consequences for victims. That's a no-brainer, but it also affects the security of juvenile facilities. So any crime or negative behavior that's going on, we know it not only affects the victim, but it also the families of the victims. And it's also important because it affects our community, because we do know that at some point incarcerated juveniles will be affected. So it's important to be able to identify perpetrators early and stop in the consequences of that. So our standards, although it's a lot, we have to understand that it is the requirement of what has to be done. But oftentimes we have to remember, you know, the law came out in 2003, the things came out in 2012. A lot has changed to progress from 2012 to 2024. So, although there are set requirements, sometimes we have to go above and beyond that in order to do what's in the best interest of our kids and our community to keep them safe. And so we don't have to stop there to make sure that we're following the law to the letter. But we want to follow the law to the letter and also add to that to make sure that. And so the standards apply. So they're juvenile facilities, but they're also there for prisons, lockup, some community type based facilities. We only, monitor the residential juvenile facilities. And so all of the standards that are there for the juvenile facilities apply. We have to follow them, we have to follow them unless they don't apply specifically to us. So a facility can't say, oh, well, we're not going to follow these particular standards because we do things at the facility. If they apply, we have to make sure that we're abiding by them, even if it's tedious or we have to change some of our own policies or some of our own practices, procedures. We have to make sure that we are meeting these standards. And then all of the standards are basically designed to address sexual abuse and harassment. So it doesn't apply to if something happens to a staff member, we address those in different ways. The standards strictly is for when the resident is a victim of abuse or harassment. So what is abuse? It's defined by the standard. So they have two different ones. One is defined for abuse if a resident does it to another resident. And then there's different definition of a staff member does to the resident. So the resident one by resident includes any sexual acts of touching where the victim does not consent, is coerced into such an act by overt or implied threats of violence, or is unable to consent or refuse. So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. So, kids that are 12 and below, they're not able to consent. Okay, so if something occurs to them, it's that, and it meets that definition, then it's considered abuse. The coercion and implied threats of violence, you might have some kids who on the surface look like they were okay with that. After investigating, you see that, they were pressured in there, they were fearful, that's why they complied, they really didn't want to, that would be considered abuse. And then, of course, victims that just label, don't want it, don't consent, that is considered abuse. Sexual abuse of a resident by staff includes all the above, but it also is any attempt, threat, or request to engage in sexual acts. So just that's asking, you to engage in sexual acts is abuse, because of course there's that health differential between the two. Also, the kids under that person's supervision. Any display of staff's uncovered genitalia, buttocks, or breasts in the presence of a resident is abuse, as well as voyeurism by a staff member. So that is, seeing a youth naked or unclothed, of course, not in an official, duties, but that would be included. So currently, we have a list of 19 DCS-free facilities. I say DCS-free facilities because these are the facilities that are contracted with DCS. There are other PREA facilities in the state of Tennessee that's not on this list, but if they're contracted with us, that's why they're not up here, okay? In order to be a PREA facility, it has to meet the definition, the PREA definition, which is a facility that is primarily used for the confinement of juveniles pursuant to the juvenile justice system or criminal justice. So on a yearly basis, we evaluate the population that's in the facility. We make sure that the facility meets the definition of confinement. And then those that have had 51% or juvenile through a year and their facility, they become juvenile. So as you can see, most of these are detention centers, secure facility is secure. And my unit, yes. Yes.
Business that there are. As far as model.
So that's a good question. So let me say this. Each facility is required by the to apply themselves. So each facility, and we'll get to that slide, but I'll go ahead and discuss now. So each facility, each agency is required to have a PREA coordinator. I'm the PREA coordinator for the state, DCS. But each agency is required to have its own PREA coordinator. And then if the agency has more than one facility, they're required to have a PREA compliance manager in each facility. So the PREA coordinator is responsible for ensuring that the PREA is being followed. And within the standards, it's also required to have a federal audit every 3 years. And so then you have an extra person that comes in and also audits to make sure that the facility and the agency is following these standards.
So did you just say Tennessee Department of Correctional?
So that is an agency. So each agency has to have its own PREA coordinator. So I'm the PREA coordinator for DCS. There is a PREA coordinator for the Department of Corrections as well. And then we have other agencies, DCS. Those agencies have their own PREA coordinator that oversees the requirements for their facility. So I am like a second layer of monitoring for those that are contracted, those that are not contracted. They don't have the second layer, other than the government who is the audit.
An example of the facility that you're referring to that is not under you, but if I understand, are responsible for the own PREA.
Yeah, so there are detention centers that we don't contract with. So the standard states that we're required as an agency to monitor those that we have contract with. So there are some detention centers off the top of my head, Rutherford, Hamilton. There are some detention, Blount County, There comes David, so they become the detention centers that don't have a contact with us, but are still required by federal law to follow the standards that are required for home monitoring. Does that make sense?
Understanding.
You say that in the microphone, say it into the microphone, people online can't hear the questions.
Oh, the question.
You can just repeat the question, whichever you like.
Okay, whatever the question, I think the question was, who monitors the facilities that are not DCS facilities, but are field care facilities within the state of Tennessee? Is that the question right? Okay.
Yeah. So you said, for example, Blunt. So within that facility, they have a designated person that monitors their own facility?
They have a pre-compliance manager that is required to make sure. So they have a PREA coordinator, required by standard, that makes sure the facility meets and follows all of the federal requirements in the act. Oh, sorry. Judge Miles, and what happens with that is that, for example, like she said, Bonner County or Rutherford County, they have to have somebody come and do all to like for the PREA standards.
It's wrong. If that's so, when our state, our governor signs a letter, says we're in compliance. Does he receive information from those independent agencies? Do you know?
Speak to DCS, I don't know if it's. I don't speak for DCS, but be submitted.
He received documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So there is an issue. Yes. So the governor definitely receives our data in the monitoring that we have done. What he may or may not receive outside of this, we have.
Thank you.
Okay, I only have a few more slides left, and I might answer your questions, but if not, I'll answer them. You'll chime in, my slides on that. Any other questions from before? Okay. So the pre-compliance audits, which is what you was referring to, is you have to have an outside monitor that comes in and provides outside monitor that is certified, that comes in to audit you every 3 years in order to remain certified. This is the current cycle, so from 2022 through August of 2025, was the cycle we're in currently is about to end. So all facilities that meet the standards are required to have it completed in order to remain certified. And then the next cycle starts August 2025 to 2028. And the auditor submits this information to the Department of Justice, and they keep that on the field, all of the facilities. All right, so PREA, so of course, passing a PREA audit only tells the facility how they are doing at the time of audit, and somewhat true, as someone who's been doing one most recently. So yes, the auditor comes in, some officers stay their day, some 2, some 3, some have teams, some have individual, take a lot longer. But their role is to not only do a site visit throughout the facility, but they also do interviews, and they also review all the information that you to show that you're meeting the standard for the year prior. So they review the whole year worth of information on how you're meeting each standard. So basically, it's just evidence that they look at additional things you're required to current on things for youth, they're looking at that information. If you have kids that come in, all the kids that come in, of course, have to be getting performance assessment, they're looking at that, they have to get mental health follow-up, they're looking. So that's why I just agree with all that I put in. That's not. Bring also is about daily practices of the facility, and it, for example, so some of the things that I want to do when they go into the facility for blind spot. That's about paperwork. This is about policy and it's about practice. So going in, facility can say they're doing A, B, and C, but the monitors are also looking to see what they say they're doing and actually see it. If they say they're meeting ratio, they're going into the classroom with kids without a teacher. So, we tried to, and like really beefed up the monitoring processes for the DCS free facilities because we want to be a help to the facilities for the auditors. We don't want to, us come in and like, oh, you're great, and then the federal auditor comes down and they find all of these findings. We want to help the facilities prepare for those audits. We also want to make sure that they're safe and try to provide training to secure training from national trainers for free for all of our facilities for the state. This just happened in September. We received really good feedback. So what we did is we identified the areas that the facilities have done, things that they were struggling with meeting. They got one thing to, say, do what the standard says. Just so many staff and all that. 2020 and getting workers. So that particular training was provided for the facilities, and we did it in each grand region to help them implement some of the just run past the training of some of the issues that they were having, so they could work through those problems, and we've had really great results with that. Next one, this is Ben. So this is my unit. We have Samantha Weinstein, which she is the coordinator for Wilder, and she also monitors most of the middle facilities. Kasani Fouch, she's the person for the West, but she does take on some of the middle facilities. And then we have Bart Jenkins, who is our monitor for the East. And then we have myself. Questions?
How is it that, to the some counties state are not, yes. How do they get it? You need to spot.
No, yes.
I don't have an answer for that. But it's just like anything else, we have contracts with certain vendors. Can't force vendors or businesses or communities, so you can't force them into a contract. The contract has to be a mutually agreed relationship.
They would still have to be licensed through the state. They may not necessarily be monitored by us through contract. So they would still have to have that state license. They may be self-monitored, or they may be monitored federally, but we only monitor the facilities that are contracted with the department and are under the definition of confinement and are above 50% juvenile justice youth.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And when we say contract with the department, you realize we're asking these detention centers to house post-adjudicated youth temporarily until we can find them placement. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just clarifying in my head. If a facility contracts with you to take kids, they have to use this service you provide. The DCS, I mean, for you. So if they contract with us and they meet the definition of the confinement, then they are required to be monitored because we're required by the standard to make sure that they're monitored.
And if we did not do our due diligence in monitoring these facilities, that would be one of our findings through our independent federal monitoring. So what Maglyn's talking about here is, you know, before I got to the department, we were really only required to go to these facilities once annually, right? So what we did last year in the midst of our own independent audit was we increased our visits to one unannounced and one announced. And the unannounced, we might do a training session, we might do a specific follow-up audit for any previous corrective actions. And this year we've actually increased again, and we're partnering with our own licensure department. We've reached out to mental health licensure. We've reached out to our own PME, TCCY. Lynn and I have spoken. So, you know, in each one of these monitoring departments have their own specialties that they're looking at, correct? You know, PME may come into your facility and they may look at case management, you know, but licensure may come in and look at ratio, right? And then with PREO, you know, we're looking at different things as well. So what we would like to do this year with our increased monitoring is to partner with our other monitoring agencies and share information, actually go out with SIU when they go out with licensure when they go out. And we've already built these relationships, and we're working towards sharing information, and which would make us all better in the department as far as actually knowing what goes on in our facilities. And to tag on what Maglyn said about culture, you can walk it. You guys have done facility tours, right? I can tell you, if you go to Shelby County today, it is clean. And the staff are squared away. They dress professional, and it's just, you can walk in there and you get that air. You get that, you know, you get that vibe, right? You can go into other facilities, maybe DNN or JJ, and you can immediately walk in and you can get a vibe of whether it's dreary and down or if it's upbeat and people actually want to be there, right? So it is a cultural thing.
Tell people all the time, art is not a bad thing. You're there. Sometimes you just be blind to what you see.
So you're saying something good.
It's good to have outside. Because sometimes you can get to what you see and used to what you're doing. I think it's correct. Education is the best thing. I'm able to share about most of my time in the clubs. But also in the youth facility, their needs are a little bit different. So you have to be me. I'm in the field. You have to be in the field to site. You just can't depend on your front line to tell you what's going on the site. You need to get in there and you need to do work. And when outside artists come in, hey, you all sit down and see what we can do to make it better. Because at the end of the day, we all have to work together. Because the kids may shift from this facility to the next facility. So it's a great thing, and I'm looking forward to continue to work with you guys. Because we've been PREO certified now for 2 years, and it is good, but it's much work. Thank you.
I'll come down and do an August tomorrow.
I did forget something that I think is really important, that people should understand. We do know to report abuse and harassment. People don't know or forget is to even report the suspicion of. So a lot of times people say, well, I don't know if it really happened, it's not my place. But we are, mandated reporters, that PREO does require the reporting of suspicions. Also, it's important to understand it's not the intent of the alleged perpetrator, but it is the way that the victim receives this. So if the person was joking or did it for some other reason that the victim was offended and it was unwelcome,
then that is a PREA incident. So we do try to do a lot of training, to help people understand, because sometimes, they get workplace harassment and, the sexual harassment. So we are here, we're so grateful we were able to partners. That doesn't happen often, because we're busy or whatever the case, but we're very happy to be here. If you have any questions, anything about training that you'd like to get that information out there, we are here and we're more than happy to provide that solution. So, what are the consequences for not being in compliance with PREA as a business? So we've had a few facilities that have, started to really, jump into compliance for PREA. And so we've been there to assist them on moving forward in that progress. As we all know, every facility is not created equal. And so sometimes there's pushback or resistance, or sometimes there's just facilities not really knowing how to correct the problem and need help. So to answer your question, we provide training. We provide coaching, like one-on-one coaching. My folks go out there and they do the visits, but then when there's an identified issue, they sit there, they do training the coordinator. We do offer our services to even staff. So with all that said, when we do our visit, we do document any deficiencies, recommendations. We give them time to work on those recommendations and resolving the problem. They don't have to do it exactly how we say do it, but they do have to do it to a standard of meeting the PREA requirements. If they fail to do that, or they're just adamant about not being in compliance, then that's when we put them on a corrective action with an agreed upon date. We try to meet with leadership to make sure they understand the importance, and also to identify any barriers. And then moving forward, if they then still fail to comply with the corrective action, then we bump it up to our PQT, who then takes action, because we do have contracts with these people. So at that point, it's out of my hand. So I'm not sure exactly what happens at that point of the PQT working now. Provider quality team, I'm sorry, I always do that, provider quality team, which is over the monitoring of the compliance for the sexual abuse of child.
Yeah, we meet with IPQT twice a month, and during those meetings, we discuss SIU cases, we discuss facility findings from licensure, from PME. So as I said earlier, all these interdepartments meet together and we discuss unfounded investigations, we discuss unsubstantiated investigations, and we discuss substantiated investigations. We discuss individuals who have come to the light of the department who may work for private providers. We discuss facilities, we discuss ratios. So I would say throughout that process, issues and things would bubble up through PQT network development to our commissioner, and then decisions would be made on whether to freeze placements or to place a corrective action on a program or whatnot. And as I said earlier, it's us with PREA working with our other departments, trying to work together to, if we know you can look at a group of SIU investigations and you can get a picture of what's going on in a facility. You can tell if something is something specific or individual, or if it's risen to the level of a cultural issue. It's us paying attention to the information that we have and doing our due diligence and monitoring these facilities and knowing what's going on and knowing that they've got the best interest of our children.
Sounds like we're done. Wait a minute. Excuse me. As far as the agency is overseeing that, what is the consequence for that? So I know we got, but They give you future thoughts and plans. Particular concept. They have, the government signs off on the letter to saying that everyone's in compliance. And then they're the agency to oversee the contracted agencies, but if they weren't overseeing them and they were out of compliance, what is the consequence for them? If they're.
So we hit microphone.
Yeah, for this, yeah.
Well, we would fail our audit. So Wilders are one state facility. And even if we did everything right in the state facility, part of the standards is of an agency monitoring the contracted providers. And so we would fail our audit and then failing our audit. Well, for the state, because then funds would be lost, not just our division, but other people's departments.
So that's, we're one of the agencies that would be affected, it should be, yeah, pre-standing. From the grant fund, they take funding.
Exactly. So fortunately, that's what it last for the audit, the funding. And we got the funding, but unfortunately, it was after the time for so this team was put into place, and then we beefed up our project, and we had to continue to use it.
Good job.
Any other questions?
Awesome. Join me in sharing how grateful we are for that presentation. That was a lot of information. How many of you all learned something? Yeah, a lot of information. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Glenn and Magdalene said they're going to hang out. So if questions bubble up in your mind before we get out of here, actually, before we move on, Glenn, you said something by way of your introduction. You talked about all of the what's the right word? You talked about all of the wonderful things that are happening at Wilder, the big turnarounds. And I'm curious, how did those things come to be? And that sounds like a weird way to ask that. But does that make sense?
It does. Wow. Well, okay, so this was learn on the fly, right? So you get offered the job, you come in, you try to figure out what's going on and how. Yeah. So for me, the real estate plan was always out into the future, so I didn't have to focus on that right now. But it was Wilder stabilization, and it was PREA, because I knew how important PREA was, right? So, wow. So this goes hand in hand. First thing is ratio, right? So the first thing we did was we looked at the master security schedule, and we looked at where everybody's off days were. And we looked at why we weren't making ratio on weekends and why we were burning up so much overtime on the weekends and things of that nature. So the first thing we did was we looked at the security schedule, and we did some options. We did a 12-hour schedule, 2 12-hour shifts, 4 days off, 3 days off, rotate, right? We did a regular stair step schedule where you evenly divide your staff by 3, and then you do the stair step and you got your off days. We did the rotating schedule, which was what they had in their mind that they wanted anyway. And so we actually did that by 3 separate cards. So the off days were evenly spread out from Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Everybody works on Friday for in-service day, and then Saturdays and Sundays, and those off days rotate. So we evened out the security schedule, and thus we started making PREA ratio every shift, every day, and we've done that for over a year now. We did have a hiccup during the winter storms of January 24, but so we fixed the security staffing, we fixed the ratio. They did a wholesale change before I got to the department in December. They changed from hardware secure youth to staff secure youth. So we reduced the population. Our commissioner wanted the population reduced to around 32, so we did that systematically. We ensured that there was purpose in our movement, so we started controlling movement better. We got the kids back to school. We had to look at our school schedule. We had to make sure that our kids were getting individual therapy. We still have ways to go on our clinical services, but we at least we could say that there's fidelity in the services that we're offering now. So reduction in population, stabilizing the leadership team. So again, the superintendent at Wilder now will be there for 2 years in May. The security manager at Wilder will be there 2 years in October. And I think in the previous 3 years, there might have been 5 or 6 different people sitting in that seat. So again, like Magdalene said, the stabilization in leadership was key to get that. So just, common sense things that needed to be done and needed to be looked at. And throughout that process, and then holding them to the fire and making them understand that ratio is not an option. It's not, we have to do it, right? So yeah.
It's a major thing.
Yeah. And of course, during that process, there's staff secure kids, so we can no longer seclude. And if you take away one control, you have to offer another control. And so your control becomes your behavior management system.
Yes.
So instead of consequences, you're trying to manage behavior with carrots, right? Incentives, fun things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted you to brag about all the good things you've been doing. Yeah, good stuff. I was saying to one of our team members recently, that sounds like tracking and adjusting. Right? You just think when things aren't working well, you try to figure out, why that is, and then make that work. It's one thing to have all the right people on the bus, but it's another thing to have all the right people on the bus in the right seats, right? And I think that's what I hear you all saying. Now you've got some stability. 2 years doesn't sound like a long time, but for that setting, when you talk about 5 different people, and yeah, it's a big deal. So bravo to all of the work that you all are doing in that way. I'm going to bring Ginger up. Ginger, kind of like Glenn. That's all I got. That's all I got for Ginger.
Yeah.
So again, this is Ginger Harris. She's the youth engagement, I'm gonna hurt myself up here, the youth engagement coordinator within the Office of Independent Living. And I had the privilege of seeing Ginger last week at CAD, and she accepted an award it was a Youth Excellence Award.
Yes.
For one of the young people that's in their program. And I walked her out and about this meeting, and she says, I'm available.
Yeah.
So we roped her in, and I'm glad she's here.
Thank you so much, Linda. Do I need to talk in the microphone or can I talk?
Either one.
Okay, because this is easier for me. Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. So my name is Ginger Harris. I'm the Youth Engagement Coordinator for the Office of Independent Living. So many of you may not know what independent living is, but our office deals with youth in foster care 14 to 17. We begin transition planning during those ages, and then we offer extension of foster care services for young adults aging out 18 to 21. So one of my many roles with the Office of Independent Living is maintaining and managing the Young Adult Advisory Council. And I love doing that. I work with some amazing young adults. All of the young adults that are in the council have foster care experience. So that means they're either in foster care currently, extension of foster care, or they've had some type of dealing with foster care, and we allow any young adult that's interested to participate. And that begins, we can take them at age 16 all the way through 23. So we have a pretty wide variety of ages and experience on our council. Currently, we have 8 excellent members that are active, and they are in all places, all over the state of Tennessee. So most of our members are in East Tennessee. We have 1 in West Tennessee, and the rest are here in Middle Tennessee. So we usually meet virtually once a month on Teams or Zoom, and that's how we keep them engaged. But we definitely have some exciting things going on, and I just wanted to share a few updates of some exciting things that we have going on with our office. So one thing I wanted to mention were the legislative hearings, and I know Richard talked about that earlier. So currently we are pushing for the age of extension of foster care to be extended. Right now, it's from 18 to 21. So we are hoping that if it passes, that the age will be extended to 23. And we know, I mean, of course, I wish it could be beyond the age of 23 because many of our young adults still need support beyond that age. But this would be a huge win for us if we can get it to 23. And we're also pushing to raise the independent living allowance. Right now, young adults that participate in EFC, they receive about $420 per month. And as many of you know, that is just not enough to survive because the cost of living is so expensive. So if that passes, that's another huge win. So I will definitely keep everyone updated. Right now, it hasn't passed fully, but we are hopeful that it will. And our 8 YAC members have been, they are at the forefront of this. They have been pushing for it, and we are so proud of them because this is going to be history that's made. So we are just so excited and so proud of them. Also, I just want to tell you about some things that happened in 2023. Many of you may not know, but I think it was July 2023, we had policy changes with the department. So this didn't have anything to do with legislative hearings, but the policy allowed for justice-involved youth to the juvenile justice population to be served. I guess it expanded the eligibility. So that's definitely exciting. We also added the employment criteria to the eligibility of extension of foster care. So now, if a young adult or a youth is aging out of foster care at 18, before this change, that young adult had to be entering a post-secondary education program, or if they were still in high school, they were able to continue their high school education or get their high set. Now, we have extended that eligibility so they're able to work a minimum of 80 hours per month, which is not a lot. But if they opt into employment and they don't want to attend school, that just gives them another option. So that way they're eligible for the program. And then we have some removing barriers criteria also. So even if they don't get a traditional job, we have employment programs through our resource centers that they can participate in, which will make them eligible for the program. So we are definitely excited about that. I think that one thing about the council is they're definitely committed to change. We're hoping to grow that council. And that is all that I have. Again, I'll be available for questions if you have any about the program or things that are happening. I'm just happy to be here and I really appreciate you having me. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yes.
So Ginger, when youth are getting ready to exit,
Yes.
they meet with an specialist or develop a transition plan.
Mhm.
Do you think young people understand the monetary value of the support that they could receive by entering the position?
That's a great question. I don't think they always understand the benefits of the program. The monetary part is so important, but for us, it's the support because so many of them are aging out of foster care. They don't have any informal supports. A lot of it is just formal supports, people that get paid to do their job. And so it's really important for us to explain all of those services and be at the table before they age out of foster care. And so we are working harder to ensure that we are there in those CFTMs. And when I say they, I mean the independent living staff. And of course, there's so many youth in foster care. So we try our best to ensure that the message is being, is kind of going throughout the department and making sure that the FSWs understand how important it is to have us at the table. But we definitely highlight the monetary value of accepting services. I mean, I've seen so many young adults leave foster care, and housing is one of the biggest issues that we run into. And so right now we are just tirelessly working with community agencies to try to help combat the housing issue with young adults. But it's so much more than that. And the one that I see is the support. I still have young adults that I've worked with 10 years ago that call me and they still need help. And these young adults are well into their 30s. And so it never ends, it never stops. We just have to make sure that we are informing youth of their options before, and we don't, that's why I say 14 to 17, because we don't have to wait until 17 until they're about to leave foster care. And we just have to make sure that we are being proactive in making sure that we talk to these young people. So that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Of our staff sit on foster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Favorite question. These young people, it's how much do you think rent is? Or you want to spend? Some of the places, they have to be reflected.
Yes.
And the cost of living is just
Yes.
up, and so we share that message.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've been involved in quite a few CFPM in the past year and a half. And I've been very impressed with the extension of foster care people in those CFPMs and encouraging the children to take advantage.
Thank you so much. We try. And I think there's always room for improvement, but we are really working hard to make sure that these young people, I mean, it's a voluntary program, so they can choose to accept the services, they can refuse services. But like you said, Teresa, rent, they don't realize how much, just simple things, food, gas, rent, it's expensive. And so you always need to have that foundation, whether you go to school or whether you're working a job. You just need to make sure that you have a budget. It's simple things like that that we make sure that we teach them before they leave and ongoing. Yes, ma'am.
So how involved are you? A lot of the students who are in foster care.
Yes.
Individual education plans.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking of those high school students who are 14 to 17. And when I talk to my colleagues in special ed, they never mention involving you in the transition plan. And
Yes.
to me, I'm starting to connect those dots, and I'm like texting the teachers, hey, how do you invite the independent living specialist in? Because that's such a key component of the high school IEP is a transition.
Yes.
And so how involved are you guys, like your team, obviously, not you specifically, in being a part of the IEP meetings and the transition part for those students?
That's a great question. We are working to be involved a lot more than we are now, because it's just so vital that we are a part of those conversations, those meetings, because one thing I say about transition plans, they cannot be cookie cutter plans. Every youth is different. They have different needs, individualized needs, and we need to be sure that we are developing a plan that is not just throwing resources at them and say, well, you can do this. It has to be tailored to that youth. And I mean, it's not just resources, it's their education plan, because a lot of these young adults or youth that are in foster care at 18, they're not going to be done with their secondary education. They may still have to continue high school or opt into doing the high set. So that is why we have to start as early as we can. So we will continue to encourage the FSWs to make sure that, let us know. If you get invited to an IEP meeting, invite us, our independent living staff, so we can be there. But we're working on it. And I just want us to be way more involved than we are now. And it's a weird work in progress, but I have a feeling that it's going to improve. So thank you for that.
I think that's just like a communication glitch.
Absolutely.
Because meetings sometimes they don't even know, the case managers for special ed don't even know that they're here.
Right.
And I think that if they knew that they could work together, that's what it's really divide. If they don't even realize that DCS workers benefit from staying connected to the case managers for special ed.
They can.
So,
Thank you. I'm going to take that back to my team, and I'm going to say something about that, but that's a great question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, it's okay. I'm not.
Do you have a lot of extension of foster care kids that are justice involved?
We do have a good number. Yes, yes, because that area, I don't want to get anything wrong, but we do. Of course, when it comes to justice involved youth, the placement is always the biggest, it's critical, especially when they're turning 18. But again, those policy changes have been very important because we've been able to serve more justice involved youth. And I hope that it will continue to expand because it is important for them to have the access to the services, just like DNN youth. Or I'm sorry, I use acronyms, dependent neglect. It's the DCS in me, I can't help it. But we have a good number of that. And our independent living specialists, they're very knowledgeable about dealing with the juvenile justice population. So, they know when they go in that meeting, what services they're going to be eligible for. So that way we can tailor the plan to that young adult.
It just seems like to that extension of age would also allow.
Yes. Absolutely, because with 23, we anticipate a lot of these young adults coming back to reestablish extension of foster care services. So we're going to see a spike in numbers for sure. If I'm hoping, I'm going to say when it passes, I'm going to speak it into existence. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Yes. Yeah.
Situations, this is one thing.
Yes.
And we are on the deputy. We are very intentional in where I'm looking for. We are very intentional in providers that are operating small care secure facilities. That if they have a young person in there that's usually supposed to be doing there's an ability to step that kid down before their 18th birthday so that they can be eligible for some of those benefits. And additionally, when we look at the real estate plan, we were very intentional on building 2 brand new facilities on the Wilder campus.
Yes.
One would be a staff secure facility. The other one would be a partner facility. And one of the primary reasons why is the ability to step those young people right there. The Wayne's Halfway House up in East Mountain View, they do a pretty good job of stepping kids down to the facility where they have partners staff secure. So that is definitely something that we are very intentional about. As many young people as possible eligible. And as far as the workforce development piece, I'm getting way ahead of myself. To do the justice Tennessee for the workforce development, as well as the extension of brothers and sisters over there.
Yeah.
Looking at ways that we can offer some additional employment training for service. I say specifically for the JJ youth, but for any DNN, JJ, it doesn't matter. It is a kid.
Right.
They make mistakes. And they with us for something, whether it's something they did or something. It is our responsibility to make sure that these kids return home or return wherever they are going to eventually return to, that they return a better person and they're in a position to be successful. If not, then we don't see. Yeah. Or we see.
Exactly. Thank you.
Deputy Commissioner, can you say more? Sorry. Courtney. Can you say-
That was great. That was good.
Can you say more about the policy change?
Yeah.
Help us to understand the policy change, like what shifted such that we now have the ability to utilize extension of foster care for KKU?
So I think Ginger would actually be better. That question.
Thank you, Deputy.
It's about a year and a half ago, we were at some big gathering. We were having a conversation with Courtney Matthews about this very thing. And, we being relatively new to child here. My question was, well, why can't you? Because I didn't understand, why. And kind of from that conversation, report kind of walked me through some things from that conversation. And there's some other things that were already happening. They weren't having those conversations long before I came into the district. So it was just a matter of getting, like you said, the right people on the bus, the right people on the bus in the right place. And about a year ago, a little more, we finally got the right people in the right bus, in the right place, making the right decisions that are going to help our kids to continue to make right decisions.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can add, just say.
That was perfect. I don't have anything to add. That's spot on. Yes.
How the new blended sentencing. And if a youth is classified as a serious youth offender.
Mhm.
Is that youth going to be able to also take advantage of the extension?
That's a great question. It's a case by case basis. We have to, and that's a great question. I mean, it is because yes, we have to look at behavior. We look at history, because that can be, that's an area. I don't want to just matter of fact say, yes, they can. We would just have to assess, if they would be a good fit for the program. And the good thing about that, yes. No, that it's a conversation that would happen. And of course, there's a team of people involved. Of course, my director, Mrs. Courtney Matthews, is wonderful. And I think it's just a discussion that would happen. So it's not an automatic no. We look at all aspects of that case because, again, each case is different. And there's other resources. That's why we stay connected to community resources. If we can't serve them in extension of foster care, excuse me, we don't just single them out and say, well, we're done. We try to connect them with other services that may better serve them than extension of foster care. So it's not just an automatic no. We're not just going to let these young people go without trying to do the best that we can to serve them. That's a great question. Absolutely. Difficult. That's why we have, the workforce development. We have our resource centers that have programs. One is called Works Wonders. That's at Monroe Harding Resource Center. So there's options for youth and young adults, which is the most important thing. We just want to make sure that options are on the table and that they know what their options are so that they can make better informed decisions about what they want to do. So. Yeah, sure.
One of the tools that we use today is a youth detention survey.
Yes.
We send this out annually. Requirements under our team to the program. Ask you, what do you want to give in the program?
Yeah. That's good.
So many of them respond firefighter, police officer, soldier.
Yes.
Being from a military family, does the Office of Independent Living engage with recruiters and help young people maybe realize that dream
That's a great question, and we've had that come up several times. We don't work directly with them, but we work with that young adult. If that is what they want to do, we will ensure that we support them in that decision. Of course, they wouldn't be able to utilize the extension of foster care services if they're going to go that route. But, we make sure that we are supporting them in what they want to do. And so I think I've had 2 cases from the past. We had young people. Actually, yes, one of my favorite, well, they're all my favorite, but one young man, he went to boot camp and myself and Courtney Matthews had a chance to travel to Memphis and we surprised him. He was going off to boot camp and he didn't know we were coming. And he is just one of the most amazing young adults. He was an extension of foster care and he decided to pursue going to the military. And we are so proud of him. He is just, I was crying. Everybody was crying. I mean, he's just, and then he sent us a video when he started boot camp. He had to cut his hair and it was amazing. And so again, we still support him. I'm still going to keep in touch with him. He was a part of the council and he decided to pursue the military. So I can't say enough about just that support is so important. And he's definitely a success story. And I'll continue to follow his journey. Thank you for that.
So I have the microphone.
Yeah.
Privilege.
Yes.
Before I moved into the young festival, it's advisory council closely with Mr. Dave over the office. I just want to emphasize like the great work they do and their resources they work with. And we were having a conversation about something totally unrelated. It's just supply. It's nothing about us without us.
Yes.
A lot of different areas of the state government. All Talks really does embody that spirit and like take center the voice and take it seriously. It's going to be a very good presentation.
Thank you. Are you trying to make me cry? Thank you for that's so sweet. Thank you. No, I appreciate you. Thank you for that. We really appreciate the support. And so thank you for listening. And like I said, if you have any questions, I'll be around. Or if you think of something afterwards, reach out. I'm in Linda. She'll know how to get in touch with me. Thank you. Thank you.
A lot of goodness happening in this room today. Anybody in the room need a break? Let's do, I don't know what time. How much time we need? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? 10 minutes. 10-minute break in the room. So folks online, y'all go do something for 10 minutes and meet us back. Yes.
But there's flaps. Well, it's pretty.
Now she's leaving the subscription. Yeah. Or people that are 40.
Is it still in this? Okay, so if I change it,
Like, I'm gonna turn your camera on too, so they can see your smiling face.
No. They'll be like, he's the one
But
who
you-
messed everything up.
No, not at all. You're a small face though. Is it presenter mode, Teresa? Getting there. Patience is a really good virtue right now.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't know what I would do without Melissa. Huh? Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me, people in Teams? Hmm? They might still be out of break. That's true.
We can hear you.
Oh, great, 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 great. All right. So this last little bit, just kind of wanted to share with you all some things that are happening with TCCY. And somebody gave me the wrong remote. Did that on purpose, didn't you? So the state of the child. You heard Richard and others, Teresa and perhaps others talk about statutory requirements. So 373103 talks about us publishing this annual report. Think of the State of the Union for the country. Think of the State of the State that our governor gives for the state, right? So this is the state of the child. And we put this out. It has to be on or before December 31st. And it's this really comprehensive report on the status of how young people are doing in Tennessee, children and youth and families, really. I'm not going to read all of this to you, and you're not going to have the full report, but this slide shows you everything that's in the State of the Child report. So it really gets detailed. It breaks stuff, it breaks things down really to a quite basic level. So you're going to talk about the demographics, how many young people, what's the percentage of young people in the state versus, adults. What type of homes are they growing up in as it relates to economics? Are they in poverty? Are they above poverty? Are they below poverty? What does that look like? Talks about childcare and early education, deals with health. I mean, all of these things. And so last but not least, there's youth justice down there. So I kind of wanted to talk to you, and this isn't even going to be the entire youth justice portion. You can find the entire report on our website. So the TCCY website. And so just going to talk to us about a few things. This isn't specific to youth justice, but this is young people in general, just some demographics to give us an idea about race, ethnicity, age, and country of origin. So 1 in 5 Tennesseans are under the age of 18. It's a pretty big number, right? One in 5 are young people, as I'm going to call them. 1 in 7 are part of an immigrant family. 1 in 9, age 5 to 17, speak a language other than English at home. And then you'll see the other breakdown there on the right. Among those that are under the age of 18, and this is 2023, which is the most recent information that we have, 62% were white alone, 17% were Black or African American, 13% Hispanic, 13% were 2 or more races, 2% were Asian, and so forth and so on. So it kind of just gives you this breakdown of what our young people under the age of 18 look like from a demographic perspective. I really wanted to cover this part. There are about 15 pages. If you go to our website and you see the entire State of the Child report, there are about 15 pages that are specific to youth justice information. I wanted to pull this prevention and intervention piece because one of the things that we work to do, our division in DCS and in other places, other agencies throughout the state, is to keep young people from actually coming into the system at all, right? Like, we don't want them. State's not a good parent, right? We've heard that over the years. We're not good parents. And so we want to prevent or intervene in some way. One of the things over the years, I didn't talk about my little history, but I mentioned my connection with DCS, and that was where most of my time in state government was spent. Most of that time was spent working on the delinquent side of the house, so in the Office of Juvenile Justice, But I did spend some time in my early years as a CPS investigator or Child Protective Services investigator. So I was that person taking away children from abusive type situations, right? I was also that person who worked on the dependent and neglected side of the house. And one of the things that I learned over the years is that by the time we get to a youth justice person and that young person has entered into the system, there were a lot of other red flags. There were a lot of other contacts with the system whereby appropriate types of services weren't presented to that family. Sometimes it is family doesn't have enough food, right? Sometimes it's that they don't have enough beds. Sometimes as a department or as a state or as agencies, we look at things from the perspective, I suppose, from the way that we were raised, and we say there are 3 children in that home and there's only 1 bed. And so that's an issue that becomes this issue that raises to a level of neglect somehow, right? And so one of the things that I discovered is that by the time that young person gets to the JJ side of the house, there have been some things that have been happening. And so what I want to talk to you about here, especially with DCS, because they get a lot of money, they don't want young people in their care either, right? They get a lot of money to be able to prevent or intervene at those times when it could actually make a difference, right? And so in FY23, DCS provided $4.8 million in funding for a total of 28 grants to juvenile courts, community agencies that serve young people at risk of entering state custody for delinquency, truancy, and other status offenses. A lot of times our young people come to the attention of the court because they're just hanging out during the day, right? They're not going to school, and that ought not be a thing. It's a status offense. It's one of those things that if that young person were an adult, they wouldn't go to jail for it, right? And so it's not something that should rise to the level of them actually coming into custody. So $4.8 million to fund a total of 28 grants to juvenile courts, community agencies that serve young people who are at risk of coming into custody. And in 2023, Tennessee served over 3,100 youth through those prevention and intervention grants. That's a lot of young people. I mean, big scope of things in the great state of Tennessee. Maybe it doesn't look like a lot, but that's a lot of young people. 97% of youth that were served through prevention and intervention services were diverted from state custody. 97%. Money's working. Programs are working, right? 97% of those young people that were worked with did not come into custody. And look at the costs. So custody prevention grants, 100% diversion rate. $3.12 a day per child. This is per child. $1,100 per year. Grantees under this classification offer program services for status and delinquent youth. And so again, for those who may not be familiar with that language, a status offender is a young person who commits an offense that if they were an adult would not be considered a crime. So again, things like truancy, things like running away from home, right? Those what I consider minor things. Drinking, if they were an adult, wouldn't be a crime. So these kind of programs have worked with status offenders, and young people who have some delinquent type cases. So those young people who go out, as I often describe it, elementary, they do something to get in trouble, right? They commit what we would call a crime. So case management and counseling and supervision, parenting classes, assessments, and so forth and so on. These are the kinds of services when we're talking about custody prevention grants. And the folks that are doing the work here get 100% diversion rate. No young person that they work with came into the system. It's incredible. And then there are child and family intervention grants, 99% diversion rate. $1.20 a day per child, $438 a year. So we're talking about really diverting young people from the juvenile justice system The Office of Juvenile Justice provides prevention and or intervention grants to 3 juvenile courts to enhance the intake process. So right now, or as of 2023, this isn't across the state, but this is just 3 or 3 juvenile courts, I apologize. And OJJ funds are used to completely or partially fund additional juvenile court personnel. So some of that money is spent on getting new employees in the door. Some of it is spent on other things, case management, the counseling, the probation, that kind of thing. But look at the rate, 99% diversion rate. And then there's a truancy piece I mentioned, 100% diversion rate. Very minuscule amounts of money being spent here as it relates to how much money would get spent. And Kathy, I'm going to send you these so you don't have to, if you don't want to. Very, very minuscule amounts of money being spent here as opposed to bringing a young person in custody and the rate that is paid on a daily basis for that young person. So this one is specifically about decreasing truancy and improving academic performance. And then there's the aftercare grants. Sometimes a young person has to come into care, right? For the safety of that young person, for the safety of the community, they have to come into care, right? They can't be in the community for a variety of reasons. And so on the back end, though, as I think it was Magdalene that said earlier, eventually that young person is going to come home. 99.9999% of them are going to come home, right? And so how do we wrap services around them on the back end? Because as Ginger just reminded us of the 30-something-year-old young adult that she's still communicating with, right? There's a need for support on the back end. So sometimes our young people on the child welfare side of the house, they age out at 18. On the juvenile justice side of the house, they're 19, right? That currently is the age of majority. And a lot of times, if they don't have family support or friend support or community support, those young people, whether on the child welfare side of the house or the juvenile justice side of the house, age out to homelessness, right? And so these aftercare grants wrap services around young people, right? It makes me think of the extension of foster care we just heard, right? It's like, I'm going somewhere, I'm leaving this system, I'm not quite ready to do this thing on my own, and there are some supports out there that can help. 98% diversion rate. One of the things that I lived through in my over 2-decade career was watching us do really well with young people in care. They were in facilities, whether it was Wilder or Mountain View or group home or wherever they were placed, they would do amazingly well because they had good structure, right? There were routines, and then they go home. And 6 months down the road, if that, we'd look up and say, oh man, what's Johnny doing back here, right? Because we didn't always do a good job of working with families. We didn't always do a good job of working with communities. So we heard Ginger talk about those community resources. It takes all of us to be able to help our young people. 98% diversion rate, not bad. And so I wanted to applaud the work that DCS is doing to either keep young people from the system, or once they're in there, helping them on the back end to not come back. And sometimes, I said this earlier, we don't know what we don't know. I wonder how many of us knew that there were all these funds out there that DCS was throwing around to people to do work, to work with young people, because a lot of times what we hear is what we see on the news, right? And it's always bad. What they're not doing, right? And so I needed, and not just because they're here, but I needed us to see that there is work that's being done on the front end and on the back end for a lot of our young people on the prevention side and on the intervention side. I want to walk you through some trends. I believe this for a long time, and I think that's why I stayed on the youth justice side of the house, or as we called it then, on the JJ side of the house, juvenile justice, because I believe that youth who commit delinquent offenses have always been, no redheads. Oh, there's a redhead. I used to say it this way, the redheaded stepchild, right, of the system. Right. And now I'm looking at you, Russette, and I'm saying that's so offensive. so offensive. I'm sorry. Hopefully there's nobody in the virtual room. But they've been treated like criminals, right? More so criminal. And so I think it's important for us to change the narrative because again, I believe that there were some things that we, and I'm not saying we DCS, I'm saying we community could have done for young people who end up on the youth justice side of the house before they got there, right? And so I want to share these trends. TBI does a lot of annual crime data, and you'll get this slide. So you'll be able to click on this Crime Insight TBI and go there and find all the stuff you want to find as it relates to those trends for young people. But one of the things that I want to point this out. Obviously, there are a number of different crimes, right? So there's crimes against persons, crimes against property, and crimes against society. And there's a whole bunch of things in each one of those that we could read through. So, of course, crimes against persons are things that are done to people, right? Murder, manslaughter, sexual assault, human trafficking, which is one of those things that we are now kind of waking up to. I remember this came out about a number of years ago, and we say there's no human trafficking, right? That stuff happens overseas somewhere. And now it's everywhere, right? And we're talking about it. Russette and another one of our regional coordinators recently did a meeting around that with TBI representatives that came to present, right? And so talking about crimes against persons, we're talking about those things that directly impact another human. Property, obvious things, right? Talking about stealing cars and theft and all of those types of things. And then crimes against society, animal cruelty, drug or narcotic violations, prostitution, weapons law violations. So those are all the things that young people could get caught into. On our website, and I hate that I don't have it here, but there's a breakdown for all of these, for all of these things. What I'm going to show you here is an overall crime rate as it relates to young people. And I'm excited about this slide because for those of you who have been in the work, for those of you who read, for those of you who educate yourselves, you know what we don't hear in the media. The media, again, would blow us up and have us to believe that young people are out of control. They have lost their minds. They are just a menace to society. But for a decade, and again, this is the most current information we have. So from 2013 to 2023, you see the downward slope, right? For a decade, everyday offenses, everyday youth crime has been trending downward. What you're not going to see here, but when you go to our website, what you'll see, there's a whole area that talks about gun violence. So although overall crime is downward, even on the adult side, so the blue bubbles you see there, that's everybody. That's all age ranges. The kind of turquoise or greenish looking bubbles are those young people that are ages 10 to 17.
So Linda, this is placement, is it arrest?
That's a great question, Glenn.
Because that's my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm gonna say what Deputy Commissioner said. I don't know, but I'm gonna get back to you. That's a great question. I'm not gonna it. I'm gonna get back with you. And that'll be something that I'll put into, I'm gonna send you all a thank you for attending email after this is all over, along with the slide deck and some additional information. And I will input that there. Yeah, in the discussion, because I don't want to keep thinking about it. But that's a great question. You'll notice in 2020 a dip for both all and young people. 2020 obviously was COVID, right? And so things just kind of looked differently for COVID. And then we started rebounding back kind of up to that place where we were to begin with. But I showed this because I need you to see that a lot of times what we hear is not the reality, right? The data speaks for itself. So I wanted to share that. And then I want to get into some placement pieces. So Magdalene and Glenn talked to us about the different placements that showed us the list of places that they partner with or that they contract with. I think this slide is also very telling. So this is from 2016 to 2023. So all kinds of placements are in here. We're talking about community placements, we're talking about staff secure, we're talking about hardware secure, we're talking about detention, jails and detention, as well as runaway and trial home visits. I think this slide is telling, just like the last slide was telling. Crime rates are going down for young people. But something interesting here happens where in 2016, 71% of young people were in the community. And now, or in 2023, or in every year pretty much thereafter, that got less and less. So it's like, even though the rate of crime for young people is going down, we're putting them in more secure facilities. You would think that it would kind of be flipped. Like if the crime rate's going down, why can't they be served more in communal type placements? Why can't they be served at home in some cases? But wanted you to see that. And you can trace that, all the way across to see from one level to another. Corey, I feel like you have a question. Or yeah, that would be nice, right? No, I see you. I saw you fiddling with the microphone.
Is my understanding that system would operate based on the report. So it's the belief that it would.
So it wasn't conviction after diversion. It was actually that.
The best person to answer this question, but one of those cases.
We'll get clarity for sure.
Such that even if that didn't arrest, it's a reporting issue, so that even if it's reported, like I called because my next door 12-year-old they the incident itself, I believe, is what is reported, even if the police didn't take that children into custody.
Good deal. Thank you all for investigating. Look at the placement, length of stay, and this is specifically in a juvenile detention center. So young people, so we go from 2019 to 2023. Over on the far left-hand side, those young people that are held in detention for less than 24 hours. Looks like we're trending in the right direction, right, for that. 24 to 72 hours. In 2023, we're up to 25% as opposed to 2019 at 20%. Those young people that were held for 4 to 10 days, kind of all over the place, from 11 to 13 to 14 down to 12 in 2023. 11 to 30 days was pretty even across the board. And then more than 30 days, 9, 11, 10, right? And so why is that important? And we heard a little bit about that when Glenn and Magdalene were presenting.
When I see less than 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Mike, Corey, Mike.
So when I see less than 24 hours, I think citizen. And from detention, people to you, she's there monitoring, make sure the status of cases are not in detention longer than 24 hours. So that's trending down. That looks good. Now I see the 24 to 72 hours and I'm misdemeanor, right? 'Cause I know, you know, your misdemeanors are gonna go before a magistrate within 24 to 72 hours and they're gonna have a detention hearing and they're gonna go. So you see a trend upward there.
Mhm.
So does that mean we've got more property crimes going on? We got more car thefts going on these days? I don't know.
Right.
And then when you get to the four to 10 and more to 30, and when I see more than 30, I'm thinking, you know, crime against a felony against another human being, right? I'm thinking about a violent offense. So you see a slight upward trend there. So that's what I see when I look at that.
Okay. Appreciate you sharing that. From the inside, from somebody that used to be on the inside. So that's helpful.
He broke it. He broke it down to say that. Time, the longest thing like better. So he's pretty.
Okay. Thank you for that. So this is on the youth side of the house and the adult side of the house. You youth too. Okay. Go ahead, Corey. What's our total number from?
What?
It depends. Is it more than like number of kids?
That's a great question. We used to get, do we still get a population report? Do we still know?
So 317 hardware secure, 121 in the States. Staff secured, just JJ numbers. Staff secured, 250. Detention, 29. And this would be post adjudication and detention. This would be us asking detention, hey, will you hold this kid until we can get them in place somewhere, right? So we've got trial home visit, 52, community placement, 158. Runaway, 3, foster home, 7. Average length of stay for detention for us is like 27 days. Total custody numbers, 623, JJ.
Total custody.
Yeah, 620.
And that's as of 2-3 days ago.
That's what these are being done.
Runaways with 3, I think he said. Yeah, this slide is just.
Yeah, but this is length of stay in a detention center.
Correct.
And
Only.
This is not a hardware secure residential, a long-term post-adjudication resident. This is pre-adjudication detention center, right? So, and we're talking about the detention centers all across the state. You got Sevier, you got Knox, you got Henderson, you got Rutherford, you got Williamson, you got Davis, you got Jackson, you got Shelby. So I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
Of course. Go ahead, Corey.
No, I said thanks. I was trying to get that. So, I guess we'd have to find.
Just remember, that's a static number.
Yes.
That's not a living number.
Yeah, right.
So this came XDS.
Yeah, and this is a one day, we take that picture of, this is what things look like one day. So yeah, to Melissa's point. Good questions, though. Yep. Any questions? About anything we've heard today? Any questions that you've been ruminating about that DCS mentioned to us? Talk to me. Awesome.
Also, I think they will report to.
Yeah.
really appreciate it. There's some people on, these come every year. You do they come? And then what is the normal of the other inside there? I see. That's a big team.
That's a Big Ten team? Anybody? And it.
Our division, so that if you find announcements every year, and that's typically in period. I think theoretically, well, it's not you. When Kylie Foundation work, they had the report, they created training. That is then shared with administrative folks, the doctors, people, and commissioners of the departments. Just to let them know, this is what the report is for this year. And then that's about 2 weeks, 3 weeks before it actually publishes. So they get a heads up on it and what's coming, and we can. That I think they do a good job of trying to talk with them anyway. There's stats that we may or may not understand. That question, then it's an open line of communication with various departments. So they can advance that end up in the report. This report is created from data that we gather from other sources. We don't do this data. The collection, what's the word? The collection of data for that. But we do have a really cool new dashboard online called Futures. You go to tn.gov/TCCY. As an S. Futures. I don't even know. But there's that kind of data can be found here. Again, it's not really living data, it's static data, but it's a working process, and they've gotten the first round up and go soothe your little data heart.
Yeah, it just as an outside view that is, right, I think if folks ever needing sort of like a reachable day outside pressure, like a lot of the time we work in some spaces, I got into the space as a support staff of well, young folks that was starting to take culture. So that is language maybe 6 weeks, just kind of that year. Not all the time, and we know what's going on inside of us. People in the state, and I want to make decisions, I think actually 3%. And so as an outside trying to collaborate with the community and make or actually able to see that we
Absolutely.
that's what that was bad.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? No. Let's see what's next. Oh, important updates. Glenn Magdalene, anything happening? Glenn, you talked about the thank you.
Yeah.
Left me. Any updates on the real estate plan as it specifically relates to youth justice or in general?
Currently, D&E's there will be 2 new intake centers per grand region. So west, east, there'll be 2 12 to 16 bed intake centers in each grand region. So any kid that's been removed from the custody of their home, there will be a safe, well-designed intake space for you to go to. Along with that, on the DNN side, there is going to be 3 assessment centers. And the trend here in the department is we recently created over 100 assessment beds for both me and JJ to go in and if the kid is in youth custody, it's an important aspect for us to find out about that kid. They can have their their psychosexual assessments, their psychosocial, their psychoeducational assessments completed. Providers can figure out from the department what is the best next placement for this youth. Permanency planning, reunification, what is going to work for this youth best? What type of services do they need? On the JJ side as well, in West Tennessee, Youth Opportunity has increased their level 3 staff secure beds by 20. They went from a 48-bed facility to a 68-bed facility. They remodeled an assisted living. It really is beautiful space for kids. It's normalized. It doesn't look and feel like an institution. They've also used their old CSI Memphis facility. It's going to be 30 new JJ assessment beds in West Tennessee. That's now, okay? But in the future, there's going to be a new staff secure and hardware secure facility on the side of Wilder, Fayette County, Somerville. Plans right now are for 72 hardware secure beds and 24 staff secure beds. And then in Middle Tennessee, the old Woodland Hill site, there are plans to build 124 staff secure beds to plan for the future. Notice what those custody caregivers mean to us. Now, currently, we've got a lot of kids on the Stewart's Ferry property. And those are DIDS facilities, DIDS housing units. And, for our department, we worry about the life expectancy of those buildings. We got kids there and we've heard that the life expectancy maybe 5 years, maybe 8 years. But we've also got to look at, how are we going to house kids moving into the future if we are losing current facilities?
Thank you for that, Glenn. That's very helpful. Judge has a question.
Yeah, as it relates to. Just a couple of questions. I mean, I don't know if you can answer these or I don't know how involved you are in the real estate plan itself. Currently, as you well know, there are these transition homes, these safe homes, whatever you want to call them. It's my understanding from working in the trenches and working closely with having a lot of kids that have been in transition homes and kids that have been there far too long. If I understand correctly, it was the answer to kids in offices. And the caseworkers I see on the ground level very stressed at this point because they're being required to sit in these homes. At first, it was 4 hours twice a week, and now it's 6 hours, 6 times a month. And on top of that, I think, and you can, I think I understand correctly because I addressed this with several others in the South Central area. Of course, now we have all different districts and areas, but this real estate plan is the eventual answer to the transition home. Is that correct? And then, and just as a follow up to the only reason I bring it up is because I see a tsunami of caseworker problems, one, and also I've been informed of several incidences that have occurred at transition homes where kids, I've had kids there as long as a month or two before. Now I think I have to go to network development. The caseworker has to go to network development to put in the place for the child. So I was asking the commissioner this a couple of years ago when he first introduced the real estate plan to the judges conference. Do you know the time frame? And the second thing is the real estate itself is not, to me, just, is it going to be properly staffed? as well. And how quickly is this gonna happen and how soon can we get rid of transition?
Okay. I can use this one. Okay. I'll answer what I can answer.
I was hoping the deputy commissioner was.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. So, I can answer what I can answer. So yes, so Commissioner Quinn has been in office for just a little bit over 2 years. 2 years ago, you saw the news articles on television about kids sleeping in offices, right? So we can say that we've gotten the kids out of offices. You know, almost. Okay. Now there may be the occasional kid in the office. Okay. But we don't have kids consistently in offices. So now, yes, sir, they are in transitional homes. And yes, sir, I can say that that is the plan. These assessment beds and this real estate plan is the plan to get these kids out of transitional homes. If you will go to our assessment centers on Stewart's Ferry Pike, on the Clover Bottom property,
I've been there.
happy. Okay. I was part of that organization that did the startup for those assessment centers. So that has grown from 24 to 48 to now 72, right? 72 assessment beds. Okay, they've that same group, Youth Opportunity, has turned Bledsoe Youth Academy into the new GPAC, the Gallatin Primary Assessment Center. So that provides another 30 assessment beds to the department as well, right? And then I spoke about that same group who expanded their JJ services in West Tennessee. That adds another 30 assessment beds. So everything that we can do to provide these assessment beds under a scope of services, under a per diem rate, gets these kids out of these transitional homes. And yes, I do agree completely. I know what it takes to run a program, and it takes a consistent leader with a consistent team and consistent staff that are devoted and dedicated to operating that program. What we see in transitional homes are a bunch of subcontracted pay for services. I'm here for 6 hours and I'm out the door, right? A good program can't exist if you don't have dedicated, devoted people with a singular leader providing direction and guidance. So the answer is yes, sir. I believe that that is the plan. I believe that we will get there. So yeah, I believe that does.
Because my concern is that in the cases that I've been involved in, particularly, obviously, my first concern is for the child. Because sometimes in these homes, you have DNN and JJ.
Yes, sir.
You have a mix and also some that are, you have caseworkers in there that are handling children that they're not trained really to handle there. And then on the flip side, I see caseworkers that, at one point I felt like we were doing great because, as 2 or 3 years ago, we had a huge deficit, 400 whatever vacancies throughout the state. That's gotten a lot better. We pumped up the salary a little bit and I saw caseworkers a bit more, but now I just see more and more stress in the caseworkers I'm working with. And particularly now, because when they're doing these, when they're doing these transition homes, they can't be working on their cases. And it's taking time away from that. Plus, some of them live an hour or so away from the transition home. So they have to drive to the transition home, stay there for 6 hours and drive back. But anyway, the quicker we can get out of that.
Yes, sir. All that is accurate, and that is our message, and that did come directly from the commissioner. Tell your people this is our solution. But she also wanted to remind her caseworkers that as long as there's kids out there that are under the age of 12 years old, those are the kids that you're always going to have to sit with, right? Because those 11-year-olds and younger are not going to be going to an assessment center or a residential bed, right? So those,
I'll tell you my worst case scenario.
Yes,
The
sir.
worst case that I had was a 17-year-old intellectually not developed severely in a transition home being cared for by caseworkers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That ain't good.
I agree. But yes, sir, I hope that answered that question as best I could.
Thanks for your question, Judge, and thank you, Glenn, for sharing with us. We know that the work is hard. And again, what I hear DCS saying is that we're moving in the direction of trying to remedy the things that they see. We're not the only ones that see that there are some issues, but they see.
Findings as just purchased and things present. The department as well, with more sense in the transition to again, tackle this issue. The the expansion of Wi-Fi beds and the expansion of, we believe great.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I just looked down. We're not going to reflect so much today. I hope that you have, yes.
I'm not sure maybe put up necessary and both mistakenly attributed.
Thank you so much for that. The most important thing, I wanted to end, y'all know it's Women's History Month. The month of March is Women's History Month. What else happens in March? Let's see. There's that. There's also March Madness. I don't know who y'all are, if you all are basketball fans. But yeah, it's also March Madness. And so I wanted to kind of end our time talking about the late great. So merging women's history and March Madness with this young lady. Y'all, shucks. Y'all know who that is? Yeah. Pat Head Summit said a lot of things, and I want to echo some of those things to us because I believe that this space is so important. She talked about how individual success is a myth. No one succeeds all by themselves, right? That's the convening, that's the collaborating, that's the bringing people together. I also like the fact that success is a project that's always under construction, right? We're always trying to get that thing right. Don't ever get to a spot where we say, okay, we're done, because something will always be evolving. And then this last piece, she said, to me, teamwork is a lot like being a part of a family. And I would say a lot like being a part of an organization. It comes with obligations, entanglements, headaches, quarrels, but the rewards are worth the cost. And I share that with us because I just want to remind us how important it is for us to keep doing stuff like this, for us to keep coming together, for us to keep talking about what those issues are, but not just talking about what the issues are, coming together to try to find a solution. And I believe in this space with those that are here still, those of you who are in the virtual space, those who had to run out earlier, we can do that. We can do that for young people. We can bring our voices to this space. We can bring our collective experiences, not just state entities, but Brother Jamel is out there in the community making things happen, right? We want to bring all of us together. There's an African proverb. You've heard it. Maybe you didn't know it was an African proverb, but we've talked about it over the years, and it just sounds so cliche sometimes. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to raise a child. It takes all of us. Our judges, I hope and believe, are doing the best thing that they can in their courts. I believe DCS is doing the best that they can with those young people that come into their care. I just believe that we're all doing the best that we can. But I think when we work in silos, it becomes difficult for us to do better. I just think we can do better. And so I shared this with us just as a reminder to, oh, look what else I did. Oh. Let's move forward together, right? We're better together. And so thank you all so much for being here. I have learned so much. And when I asked that question earlier, I don't know about in the virtual room, but almost every hand went up in this space when I said, did you learn something when Magdalene and Glenn, after they presented? And we were like, yeah, we learned a whole bunch of stuff. Let's keep doing that. And if there is something, you individual people, if there's something that you want to present, Shelby County, I'm always amazed. Y'all 8:40 up coming this way. And it just blesses my heart to know that this meeting is important enough that you would make the, I'm gonna say 4 hours. I'm not gonna say that's how long you made it in, but
But this is not the thing. It's great. I always try to extend education to. I always try to extend education to me and my team, in correction facility and detention since never saw it. Shots to different parts, not even Shelby County, different states. You know, the senior, they one of the biggest detention centers, you know, in Shelby County. Yeah. And it's a lot of parts and say, I give kudos to my team and also to our director, Chief Field, for allowing us and trying to give us the tools that we need. Because it can be very challenging to run the facility and to give all those kids, which are different, case by case the need that they may have. They do that we're not able to judge with by the service. And while they're there, we want to give them the best service that they have. How many times they come through the door, their last time. But every time they come through their experience, to know that they're safe there, we're going to try to provide the best that we can. But I love this. I love it. It's just a joy to be here.
that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, you can on the outside looking, there's a lot of moving parts with there. I review the reflection questions.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I certainly will. You're welcome.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
It is indeed. It is indeed. All right, y'all. So what you're seeing here, for those of you who are in the room, you can point your phone this way. This is our post-meeting evaluation survey evaluation. I hope the folks in the virtual space can capture that. If you can't, it will go out in the email that I mentioned to you. That email will be sent out to you all by Monday. And it's important to our team that you all tell us how these meetings are going. I mean, like for real. Like you tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, that you say to us, this was great, or woo, y'all should do this differently. And so there are some questions in there where we want to know, how did it go? Did you learn anything? What did we do good? What could we do better? And we're not asking those questions just to be asking them, but we're asking those questions because we want you all to help us be better. We want you all to be able to tell us that, hey, what about this? There's a question in there about what other youth justice related topics would you want to hear, or would you want us to bring? And so we want you to talk to us about that. Talk to us about people out in the community that you think would be good for us to bring in so that they can educate us about some things that we're not currently educated about. They don't have to be state agencies. They could be young people. We need young people with lived experience. They can be parents of young people with lived experience, which makes those parents of lived experience, right? Because when a young person comes into care or goes through the system, it's not just a young person that's affected by that, right? And so please be intentional about telling us what we did well, what we could do better, but then also be helping us to think through the things like Jamel did today, looking at it from the outside. He's not in the system. He doesn't work in the system. He doesn't want young people to be in the system. And I think none of us do. But from the perspective of, have y'all looked at it from this? Because he's out there doing the work, boots on the ground, right? And so please tell us how we did. Tell us what we can do better. Again, you'll get the email from me by Monday with the PowerPoint slide, with some additional links to some resources and things of that nature. We are also recording, so you'll get the recording. I don't know if you'll get the recording on Monday. but you'll get the recording. I say it that way because Kylie, Teresa mentioned Kylie. Kylie is our go-to person for all things like media kinds of stuff. And so Kylie's been helping us to get our recordings into YouTube videos. That makes it easier for us to get out there. And Linda Copeland hasn't learned that yet. So, but thank you again for being here. Any final thoughts, questions, concerns? Nope. Team, am I missing anything? Nope. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. I am missing something. So our next meeting is scheduled for July 25th. So here's one of the things, and I'll say this really quickly. Here's one of the things that our team has tried to do. You all that have been rocking with us since last year know that we went to this hybrid model last year. So we have meetings where we bring people together in the same room, and then we have our partners joining us by way of teams. We posed a question to those who have been attending to say, hey, what if we came your way, would you show up at an in-person meeting? And folks are like, yeah. So we're heading west. We're heading west in July. So July 25th, we're going to be at TDOT in Jackson. Oh. We are partnering. See, we're coming for you, West Tennessee. We are partnering with, so you may not know this, but within our agency, we have what's known as regional coordinators. We're a small state agency, right? And so there are a handful of us, about 20 of us that work downtown Nashville, but then we got 9 of our regional coordinators who are spread out all over the state. So in West Tennessee, we have 3 folks. We've got somebody in Southwest, Northwest, and Shelby. And so they're gonna bring the group that they normally hang out with, which are youth service officers. They have a youth service officer roundtable, and they're going to host us, the youth justice team, and we're gonna come and hang out and talk about the things y'all want to talk about. The difference between that meeting and this meeting, our normal meetings have been from 12 to 3. That meeting on July 25th will be from 9 to 12 because that's what time they normally have theirs. Awesome. So July 25th, and I'll shoot that date to you again on the email that I send out. And then we will meet again in September. That meeting will probably be here in Nashville. And then again in December, but we'll get you all the information that you need as it relates to that. But I did want to do the shout out for that July meeting. So for the folks that normally meet us in Nashville, you'll be the virtual audience that day. And then our team will be headed down to West Tennessee. So again, thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate you. And we will see you soon. Deuces.